Welcome, friends, to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon. Guys and girls, I am a retired New York City police detective with over 20 years of law enforcement experience. If you like all things true crime related from the detective's perspective, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you'll get all things DutyRon and when he's in the country, Ed Wallace, when we upload another video. Tonight, breaking news, and it's good breaking news. Earlier today, I talked about the jury in deliberation, and they were given lesser charges to look at just in case they didn't get the guilty verdict on the higher charges of murder, second degree. Unanimous decision came in tonight from the jury, guilty of second degree murder, and all charges levied against him, because there is a slew of charges against his the crimes he committed against his son, not only Thomas, but his son Anthony, who endured the same torture and punishment that Thomas endured, but he is living today to talk about it. So tonight, breaking news out of Riverhead, Long Island, Suffolk County, guilty on all charges. We're going to play the clip for you guys, but before I get into it, I want to say a special thank you to the Patreon supporters, the channel members, and all the folks who subscribe and engage in this community. I give thanks and praise to each and every one of you. And by I know people might be asking, what is this shirt? This is the Gabby Petito Foundation shirt that I purchased on the website to support the Gabby Petito family. So let's get into it. Let's listen to the breaking news report. This was around somewhere around 6 o'clock tonight, Eastern Standard Time, 6 o'clock on the East Coast. So I know that we're all happy about this, and everybody is in a joyous moment. But let's play a little bit of this. And I got something special to play for you from another one of the Crime Time with DutyRon community members. I won't give it away until I'm ready to do it, but she uploaded some video tonight, and I want to give her some credit for following this story. So yeah, thank you. Nothing but love, Joey Brooklyn, Alicia B, Rocky Pastorino, Jojo, all the great ones in here. Let's watch and listen to the local coverage, and let me know in the chat if you haven't seen this coverage yet, because I know that sometimes, we're definitely going to celebrate tomorrow night, Diane. Sometimes you don't get to see this stuff because it's not put out over the international airwaves or even nationally. It's sometimes just a local story. So let's let this roll, and I'll be back in a few minutes. I'm going to go full screen with it so you guys can see it all.
Michael Valva was former NYPD officer. Michael Valva was just found guilty of murder in the second degree in the death of his son, 8-year-old Thomas Valva. Now the judge allowed cameras in the courtroom. Take a listen as the verdict was read.
In the matter of the people of the state of New York in Supreme Court, Suffolk County, against Michael Valva, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, how do you find, as to count one, charging the defendant, Michael Valva, with the crime of murder in the second degree, not guilty or guilty? Guilty. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, how do you find, as to count two, charging the defendant, Michael Valva, with the crime of endangering the welfare of a child, as to Thomas Valva, not guilty or guilty? Guilty. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, how do you find, as to count three, charging the defendant, Michael Valva, with the crime of endangering the welfare of a child, as to Anthony Valva, not guilty or guilty? Guilty. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, how do you find, as to count four, charging the defendant, Michael Valva, with the crime endangering the welfare of a child, as to Thomas Valva, not guilty? Guilty. Guilty. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, how do you find, as to count five, charging the defendant, Michael Valva, with the crime endangering the welfare of a child, as to Anthony Valva, not guilty or guilty? Guilty.
Valva will be sentenced on December 8th. We will have much more on this case later tonight. Reporting from Riverhead, Cecilia Dow.
So there you go. A slew of charges levied against Michael Valva. I got to work on this, man. Can't find the mouse on the screen, so it's making it tough for me to get back here. as you heard, guilty on all of the charges. Yes, let me highlight some of these comments. Cat H says, piece of shit. Absolutely, I agree. Justice says, Eddie T. Great to see you, my friend, Eddie T. Tara is saying News 12 Long Island. Yes, News 12 has some coverage on it. Let me say thank you to everyone in the Facebook groups. I shared this on Twitter. I shared it into a couple of Facebook groups. I hope each and every one of you are here to celebrate. Don't forget, this is just the start. We need to have him sentenced. There will be that sentencing phase where we will hear, does he get 25 to life? Yes, that's the range of the charge for murder second degree, 25 years and up to life. Let's hope that the judge sentence him to life in prison on that murder charge, the murder second degree, and then all of these other 5 counts will be icing on the cake. Jennifer Nobles, good to see you. Thank you so much. Yeah, he didn't flinch at all. I have a treat for you. I want to play a little clip from True Crime with Shannon. She is a content creator here on YouTube. I will link her channel down below in the description. She has been following this case very closely, and she's been reporting on it. So I don't know if True Crime with Shannon is here. I didn't get a chance to ask her for permission, but I don't think that she's going to have a problem with us playing her video from tonight. I have another clip from News 12 that's longer, but True Crime with Shannon went live with this thing or uploaded it. She put it on her channel, and she has a little bit more. So I'm going to link her channel in the description. New York does not have the death penalty, Sean. That's a good question. Let me go right back to that. Sean Raw says, do they have the chair? Unfortunately, we had the death penalty under Governor George Pataki. He was a Republican, and then a Democratic governor took over, Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo, and he repealed the death penalty. He took it off the table, and it hasn't been in place. But I'm happy to report that the death penalty was in place when my partner, Kevin Gillespie, police officer Kevin Gillespie, was shot, killed in the line of duty, and his perpetrator, who was charged with murdering a New York City police officer, was sentenced to the death penalty, but he hung himself in jail, so he never got to see the chair. I don't think that they used the chair. I think it was lethal injection here in New York. But yeah, I just wanted to answer that question. So let's play True Crime with Shannon. She has a great little YouTube channel. She is she covers this thing really well, and I got to say thank you to her for putting this out there. So let's play it, and then hold on a second. Let's play it, and then I'll post the link to her channel here. This is a longer version of it. I had it saved, but I just want to play her version because I think she's awesome. So here we go. True Crime with Shannon. You'll see some of her watermarks on the screen. So there she is. Let's rock and roll with this.
Back to True Crime with Shannon, where I cover missing persons, unsolved cases, crime news, and more. All right, guys, the verdict is in. It came in, I think, after just before 6 o'clock Eastern Time. It is a great verdict. It is guilty on all counts for Michael Valva, and I'm actually going to play that for you right now.
This was live from inside the courtroom.
And once again, the jury.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm going to ask you to direct your attention to our clerk.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, have you agreed upon a verdict? Yes. Will the defendant please stand and face the jury? Will the foreperson please rise? In the matter of this the people of the state of New York in Supreme Court, Suffolk County, against Michael Valva. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, how do you find, as to count one, charging the defendant, Michael Valva, with the crime of murder in the second degree? Not guilty or guilty?
Guilty.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, how do you find, as to count two, charging the defendant, Michael Valva, with the crime of endangering the welfare of a child, as to Thomas Valva? Not guilty or guilty?
Guilty.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, how do you find, as to count three, charging the defendant, Michael Valva, with the crime of endangering the welfare of a child, as to Anthony Valva? Not guilty or guilty?
Guilty.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, how do you find, as to count four, charging the defendant, Michael Valva, with the crime endangering the welfare of a child, as to Thomas Valva? Not guilty? Guilty.
Guilty.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, how do you find, as to count five, charging the defendant, Michael Valva, with the crime endangering the welfare of a child, as to Anthony Valva? Not guilty or guilty?
Guilty.
The foreperson can please be seated, and will the defendant also please be seated? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, listen to how the court has reported your verdict, and as it stands recorded. You say through your foreperson that you find the defendant, Michael Valva, as follows. As to count one, murder in the second degree, guilty. As to count two, endangering the welfare of a child, as to Thomas Valva, guilty. As to count three, endangering the welfare of a child, as to Anthony Valva, guilty. As to count four, endangering the welfare of a child, as to Thomas Valva, guilty. As to count five, endangering the welfare of a child, as to Anthony Valva, guilty. Members of the jury, is this your true verdict? So say you all. Yes. The attorneys request a polling of the jury.
Yes. Please poll the jury.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, say through your foreperson that you find the defendant, Michael Valva, as to count one, guilty as to the crime of murder in the second degree. As to count two, guilty as to the crime endangering the welfare of a child, as to Thomas Valva. As to count three, guilty as to the crime endangering the welfare of a child, as to Anthony Valva. As to count four, guilty as to the crime of endangering the welfare of a child, as to Thomas Valva. As to count five, guilty as to the crime endangering the welfare of a child, as to Anthony Valva. Juror number one, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number two, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number three, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number four, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number five, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number six, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number seven, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number eight, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number nine, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 10, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 11, is that your verdict?
Yes.
And juror number 12, is that your verdict?
Yes.
Your Honor, the verdict is unanimous.
All right, thank you. At this time, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm releasing you from all admonishments on behalf of the court system, on behalf of the parties, on behalf of your community. Thank you. You performed a very difficult and valuable service. And I know how hard you all worked in reaching this verdict. So your patience, your attention was duly noted. You can speak to anybody or nobody about your experience here. It's entirely up to you. Okay? My understanding is you may wish to chat with me, and I will make myself available to yourselves, as well as our alternates who were here every day with us. So I release you now from all admonishments. Somebody asked if I could get you lifetime exemption from future jury service. You certainly deserve it. But we'll work. Again, thank you.
Guilty, unanimous verdict on every single charge.
So there you have it. True Crime with Shannon. Thank you for allowing me. I see she's here in the chat. Let me highlight her. Where is she? I got to find her. There she is. True Crime with Shannon. You did a great job of putting that video out there. I have that whole clip saved, but I wanted to share your video, and I encourage everybody. I'm going to link her channel down below in the description. Thank you, True Crime with Shannon, for putting that together. Yeah, this is a glorious, long, overweighted night tonight. Justice for Tommy Valva. You know, Diane B and myself, I'll highlight Diane right there in the chat. We went to this little baby's funeral. And for those of you who are tuning in and don't know this story, on a cold winter night, 19 degrees Fahrenheit outdoors, on a January night, January 17th of 2020, right before COVID-19 hit United States really strongly, hit us really bad in March. Thomas Valva and his brother Anthony were left in the garage to sleep as punishment because of their incontinence and having mistakes. They are both on the autism spectrum, and the punishment that was endured by these two little boys is just beyond belief. What a parent, and this is a former New York City police officer, Michael Valva, as you saw in those pictures, stone cold face, not even a drip of emotion. And that's what makes it equally as tough to see and watch, that he tortured these poor boys from 2018 until 2020. He got custody of these boys in the winter of 2018, and they endured winters in 2018, 2019, and going into 2020. I checked, and I talked to Diane, my neighbor across the street and good friend. I checked the weather in the month of January when this heinous murder took place, and there was so many days in the month of January where it was below 32 degrees. Then I went back and I did a little detective work and checked December. And the months of December, there was like in the teens, like it was like 16 or 17 days out of the 30 days in December where it was below 32. And you know that these boys were in the garage because we heard from the teachers at the school that they would come in with blood red hands from being out in the cold. He died from hypothermia. His body temperature was 76 degrees when he reached the hospital. And the father, who was a duly employed New York City police officer, transit police officer, he tried to cover it up and said that his boy fell in the driveway running out to the bus, and that never happened. And he even went so much further he started a GoFundMe to pay for the funeral expenses of his son, and he collected money because he wasn't collared until a week later. Unbelievable, right? He went and created a GoFundMe and collected money after knowing what he did to his son. That's really wrong. I'm going to share a link with Jess, the mystery maven. I'm going to ask her to call in. I don't know if she can. I haven't really looked at my text messages to her, but she said, if you want, I can call in. I'm out. She's a criminal defense attorney. Joe Murray is busy tonight, so I just sent the link to Jess, the mystery maven. Hopefully she could come up. Let's go and look at the chat here. And thank you to True Crime with Shannon for your good and hard work on this case. She's been covering it quite a bit. She's been on it quite a bit. Let's listen also to what ABC7 has to say. I know that they're covering this as well. I got to get Josh to call into my computer and put the ad block on because all I'm getting is a bunch of ads. I don't know why. I thought I had it on here, but unfortunately on my Firefox, I don't have it. So I got to let these ads play. So annoying. I hate ads. Let me know in the chat if you hate ads. I hate them. All right, here we go. I had to mute it.
With prosecutors. Well, at this hour, the jury is deliberating in the case of a father charged with killing his son by keeping him in an unheated garage on a frigid night. The jury got the case after the prosecution and defense delivered their closing arguments, with prosecutors accusing Michael Valva of subjecting his 8-year-old son to years of abuse. Eyewitness News reporter Shantae Lyons live in Riverhead with more. Shantae.
And the jury started deliberating around 11 this morning here. Oh, now more than 5 hours later, they're still trying to decide if Michael Valva, an ex-cop, is guilty of murdering his own autistic child. Michael Valva's fate hangs in the balance as a Suffolk County jury deliberates in the ex-NYPD cop's murder trial. He's accused of killing his own 8-year-old autistic son, Thomas, allegedly forcing the child to sleep in an unheated garage. 8-year-old autistic.
Hey, do you see that up in the top right? Let me take the banner off. Let me take my banner off. But on the top, actually top left, let me take the banner off. Hold on. See, it says from GoFundMe. That was the felonious GoFundMe that he started. This really, what pond scum, right? Can you believe that? He started a GoFundMe, a real dirtbag.
Deliberates in the ex-NYPD cop's murder trial. He's accused of killing his own 8-year-old autistic son, Thomas, allegedly forcing the child to sleep in an unheated garage of his Center Moriches home in 19 degrees in January of 2020. Deliberations come one day after prosecutors and defense attorneys gave their closing arguments, the culmination of a murder trial that began in September.
Let's remember that he's still suffering from the loss of his child. So no matter what the verdict is, he still has to deal with that tragic loss.
Oh, get
Valva's attorney defending him outside of court, but on the inside, Suffolk County prosecutors told jurors that Valva treated his child poorly in the final moments of his life, screaming at him and striking him as he died of hypothermia. They want Valva convicted of the top charge of second-degree murder. Valva's attorney.
And we know that that has happened. So this is the report before the verdict.
Is asking for a lesser charge of criminal negligence and homicide, saying he did not want his son to die and that he tried to save his life. He's pinning the blame on Valva's fiancée, Angela Paulina, who was also home when Thomas died.
Well, it was clear from all the evidence and substantial evidence that she was the dictator of discipline in that household, that she controlled not only Michael, but she also had a lover in that household that lived with her.
You know, I tell you, man. All right, listen, I got Jess, the mystery maven. Let me save my anger for after this. Let me put myself back on the screen because there's a couple things I want to say. Listen, thank you to the Facebook people and all the folks tuning in that have been following this from the beginning. Yes, there was a sexual component that was alleged by Justina Zupko Valva. She alleged through her son's therapy sessions, you know, through her son who survived this. Not Tommy, obviously. Tommy was murdered, but Anthony saw a therapist after he too was frozen in the garage with his brother. It's just a miracle that he survived all this, but he drew drawings that Justina Zupko Valva, that's the mom. She said that he drew drawings of cages and of all types of different deviant sexual things that allegedly happened to them, and that they were passed around from person to person by their father and the step monster, and that was never brought up in this trial. And what was never brought up in this trial was the fault of the family court and the CPS workers, and they were asked by the defense, why isn't the prosecution bringing on the people who were responsible for placing him with his client, Michael Valva, the monster? All right. Jess is here with us. She can't come on camera, but she's going to come on audio. She's a criminal defense attorney, and she's kind enough to join us. Jess, the Mystery Maven, thank you so much for joining me on such short notice. But this was breaking news at 6 o'clock our time here on the East Coast. What's your thoughts, Jess?
Wow. Well, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I just wanted to check. Hopefully my Wi-Fi will stay in, but I wasn't surprised by this only because what I had read in terms of what was going on during some of the testimony was that the jurors seemed to be shaking their head a lot when they were hearing certain kinds of sensitive testimony. And I know that cases that involve the abuse of children, you know, jurors come to the table with a lot of preconceived ideas about things like that. So with the overwhelming evidence here and how heinous it was, I personally expected there to be this verdict. So I wasn't surprised by it. And I'm glad that justice will be served here.
You know, it's funny that you said that, Shannon. Jess, I'm thinking of Shannon. I'm still looking at her name on the screen. But Jess, you know, it's funny you said that because Diane B., my neighbor, her and I went to the funeral. We went to the Justice March for Tommy Valva on March 1st. March 17th, New York City was shut down with COVID in 2020. And I think the rest of the world slowly, the rest of the United States slowly started shutting down in different parts of the, United States. But we went on that Justice March, and Diane said to me yesterday, Ron, I am going to blow a gasket if they find him not guilty of this murder second degree. And she said, I'll blow a gasket if they charge him with the criminally negligent homicide and all the things that the judge asked them to consider. And I said today, I saw you were in the chat, I said today, the reason the judge is doing that is to ensure that this scumbag doesn't walk away. Was I on point with talking about that today, Jess?
Absolutely, you were. I saw that earlier when you came on and you did your stream, and I totally agreed with you 100%. This was just an alternate charge, you know, that the jury could consider in the event that they had, you know, any jurors there who might not want to go and convict on the higher charge. So this at least gave them that alternative, even though it would be a horrible outcome. I mean, nobody wants to see that, but at least he would get something as opposed to just walking free.
Right. And now the process that goes forward from here is that, you know, he now has to be sentenced, right? So 25 to life on the top, right?
Correct.
And then we have the endangering the welfare of the child, 1, 2, 3, 4 charges of endangering the welfare of the child, both Anthony and Thomas. And that's obviously because he had both of these boys as cruel and unusual punishment in the garage, no use of the bathroom facilities. They were sleeping on wee-wee pads that you use for a dog to train a dog. And Angela is Heard, the step monster. I don't believe she was the stepmother officially, but they were both together, living together and engaged to be married. But she said that, you know, they can't stay inside the house because they're soiling my house. And he agreed with that and kept them in the garage for God only knows how long. But we have on camera, as per the Suffolk County homicide detectives, from January, I think, 2nd to the 12th, somewhere around 5 days before little baby Tommy died of hypothermia, they had him on camera. It was either a Nest or some type of home camera, security camera, and the little Anthony, actually, not Tommy. Anthony is looking in the camera, you know, when you're in the dark and you just see the eyes, and he is saying, I'm cold. I need to go to the bathroom. Please, please, begging and pleading with them to let them in. I checked the days from January 2nd going up to that date. It was below 32 degrees. And some nights it was 23 degrees. So just sickening. You know, that you'd have not only is it sickening on all different levels, any human being that does that is not human in my mind. It's an evil monster. But this was a duly sworn New York City police officer. And that's why I took this thing very personal, and it really hurt me. It was one of the first cases, Jess, that I actually cried on YouTube. And that's in my playlist.
I remember you said that, yeah.
I sat at my kitchen table and I wasn't, like sobbing, but I was crying and visibly shooken up, because when they announced his arrest, it was, I believe, a week later. And I was just shocked that he and his fiance did this. Could we talk a little bit about the possibilities here? I know he served around 3 years. That's all time served, correct? That will go
Right.
right.
Now, the only good thing here is that the judge here is going to be able, there'll be a sentencing report done, and then there'll be the sentencing in the future. I don't have that date in front of me right now, but the judge is going to take all of those circumstances that you just referred to under consideration. So the fact that this was such a heinous crime and all of those circumstances, they're all going to factor into this. So I predict that he's just going to get the maximum here. I don't think that I don't think that the judge is going to take any of this lightly, and he's going to look at this, and I think he's going to send a message. And I really hope that the other defendant, I can't recall her name off the top of my head at the moment.
Angela Polina.
Yes, I hope that she takes note here, because I saw the words of the defense attorney this evening, and even he was acknowledging how the state had a lot of evidence against his client, and how, he couldn't, I think he said something, he couldn't overcome it or something, and he felt bad about it, but that he acknowledged that he understood why this jury even came to this decision. So I really hope we see a plea in this other case. I really do, because to me, she had the benefit of seeing this case go first. So hopefully that will not waste anybody's time, and she could just go in there, and hopefully they put her away, for a very, very long time.
Some of my Facebook users, I put this in all my Facebook groups. Here's one of the Facebook users. They didn't sign in, so I don't know who this is, but they put, he or she says, Angela, she is just as guilty. And, there's an argument here where it's been talked about and said, Jess, that she was the driving force and he just bowed to her. But I don't buy into that, because it takes two to do this. Nobody put a gun up to his head. She was a housewife, well, acting as a housewife. She had 3 of her own girls there who were untouched and in perfect condition. They went to dance school. They were treated well. And Andrew, the third boy, who doesn't get spoken about here, he was not on the autism spectrum, and he did not have problems with the bathroom. So he was untouched. He was
definitely seems like these children were targeted, and that's just horrifying.
These two were targeted 1,000%, and it was both of them together. So, there was, let me revisit a little bit. How much time do you have? Do you got another 5 minutes, or do you got to run?
I got some time.
Okay. So Jess, Joe Murray and I, Joe, criminal defense attorney, great friend, retired, former police officer. We shot this around quite a bit about why no first degree murder. And people are still stuck on that. People still to this day say to me, DutyRon, they deserve the highest degree of murder. His own mother, Justina Zupko-Valva, a Polish immigrant, a wonderful woman. I met her in person. I've been to her home. She lives just one town over. She said to me directly, Ron, I don't understand why the courts are not charging the highest count of murder. But if you get the max on murder second degree, it's life in prison, correct?
Oh, yes. I'm so sorry. I was on mute. Yes, that's correct.
I was like, Jess, back me up on this. Yeah. So people just get caught up on the first degree and second degree. It's just easier to get that conviction on second degree than as first degree. There's a couple of components to first degree murder that are difficult to get beyond a reasonable doubt, perhaps in this case. So I think what happens is the district attorneys, who are all attorneys, the district attorney looks at the case and says, hey, what's the probability of us getting a guilty verdict on murder first degree or murder in second degree and so forth? And that conversation is had, right? So there's all different things, whether it was premeditated, whether it wasn't, and things of that nature.
Right.
But
Right. And
I
you always
feel
want
that,
to make sure that for every element of the crime that you have sufficient evidence to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. For whatever reason here, they must have thought that they didn't want to overcharge here. And that's, I've seen that before in so many cases. I'm sure everybody else has. And we don't want to see that. If they wanted this conviction, they probably went with what they knew they could get the conviction for. So that's my reasoning, that I would
right.
think that they just didn't have enough to go into it as confident as they were with the second degree.
Yeah, I agree, and that's what Joe had mentioned when we spoke. And I will link all the Thomas Valva coverage and Michael Valva coverage. I think we have over 30 videos that I produced on this thing. Stacy Soul for Music 79. Thank you for gifting out a membership, and I think Brandy got the membership, because there she is saying, "Oh my God, thank you so much." So Brandy H, welcome to Crime Time with DutyRon, and thank you to Soul for Music 79, who's a great friend, a real great friend of this community. And I appreciate you, Stacy. Thank you for gifting that membership. Yeah. So in addition, we have another 4 counts of endangering the welfare of a child. And it involves Anthony and Thomas. Those are the 2 that were left in the garage. I have a press conference from the New York, I almost said New York City Police, from the Suffolk County Police Department. And this was an update that was posted 2 years ago. I'm trying to look for the date, but I can't see it. But it's posted 2 years ago, and it's a 6-minute clip. Jess, do you have time to sit and listen to this, and then we'll do a little commentary on it, and then I'll let you roll?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Jess. All right, so
Yeah.
let's play this. This is the former, she's no longer in charge. Now there's a New York City high executive, I believe his name is Rodney. Someone help me out with the Suffolk County Police Commissioner now, but he's a great guy, and he's from the NYPD. Rodney Harris. Thank you. Thank you, DutyRon. I remembered. All right, here's the press conference after the arrest of Michael Valva, and you'll hear a lot of things here. Kimberly, thank you for the super chat. She says, I wish child and elder abusers and murderers would get the death penalty. Love you, DutyRon. Love you right back, Kimberly. Kimberly, I agree wholeheartedly. These are a special kind of monsters, special kind of monsters. Mary, oh my gosh. Mary London, how are you? Hope all is well. Haven't seen you in a long time. Thank you for coming in. It's great to see you. All right, let's play this. This is from after the arrest of Angela Polina and Michael Valva. This is the Suffolk County Police Commissioner on the arrest.
Before we begin, I want to express
the audio
my
comes up
sincerest
on here.
Condolences to Thomas Valva's family and friends, especially his siblings. We are here to discuss the arrest.
So let me know if you can hear the audio okay.
And Angela Polina.
It is a little low.
Of Michael's 8-year-old son, Thomas. The couple has been charged with murder in the second degree because they engaged in conduct which created a grave risk of death to this child. Thomas Valva was subjected to freezing temperatures in the home's unheated garage overnight.
Thank you.
When the outside temperature was 19 degrees. We first responded to 11 Bittersweet Lane in Center Moriches on January the 17th at 9:40 a.m. after Michael Valva reported that his son Thomas fell in the driveway while waiting for the school bus an hour earlier. Michael indicated that his son lost consciousness after the fall, but has remained unconscious. When the officers arrived, Michael Valva was performing CPR on his son in the basement. Thomas was transported to Long Island Community Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. At the time of his arrival at the hospital, Thomas's body temperature was 76 degrees. As with any unattended death, homicide detectives conducted an investigation which revealed inconsistencies in the timing and the nature of the child's injuries as reported by his father. We have determined Thomas was never in the driveway that morning, and he suffered head and facial injuries that were not consistent with the father's account. During the past week, homicide detectives conducted a round-the-clock investigation, which included the review of video and audio recordings captured on the family's home surveillance system, both inside and outside the house. The recordings show the pair was closely monitoring the activities and conversations of their 6 children, Michael's 3 sons, ages 6, 8, and 10, and Angela's daughters, 11-year-old twins and a 6-year-old. We believe that the 10 and 8-year-old boys were subjected to punishment, including food deprivation and exposure to extremely frigid temperatures. We are still investigating the extent of the abuse and if it extended to all the children. Following Thomas's death, the department notified Suffolk County CPS and assisted in the emergency removal of the other 5 children on January the 17th. The children are currently in a safe environment. These arrests are not the end of the investigation. We are still processing evidence and conducting interviews. This case has hit our department hard, even the most seasoned detectives. I would like to thank our homicide squad for their countless hours in seeking justice for this little boy. I would also like to acknowledge and thank all the agencies that assisted us in this investigation: the New York City Police Department, the East Moriches School District, the FBI, the Department of Social Services, the medical examiner, and the District Attorney's Office. I'll take any questions that you might have. So the medical examiner has ruled it a homicide with a major contributing factor of hypothermia.
So both boys
Just
were
one
in
at a
the
time.
garage? Both boys were kept in the garage overnight for how long?
So it's under investigation, but we believe certainly that Thomas was kept in the garage overnight preceding his death.
And the brother?
That's under further investigation.
Can you describe the condition of the house? You walked in, what's the officers walked in, describe the house.
So the father was, as I said, conducting CPR on the child in the basement of the house. The garage that I'm referring to is attached to the house. It is unheated and unfinished.
You spoke with the mother earlier this week, and she said that there were tons of reports that were given to CPS and with the school district and so forth like that, and she lost.
She's asking about CPS here. Listen up.
Talk about the CPS investigation and why these children were in the home after years of abuse.
Sure, certainly. So I will tell you that an event of this magnitude, the death of a child of this age, is just unimaginable to all of us as parents, as a mother. I can tell you that we are going to look at every interaction that this child had with the system, and we're going to follow through and make sure that we investigate every avenue.
Okay, I got to stop it there. That never happened. Okay, I'm going to go full screen with me. As far as we know, that has never happened, because at the trial, none of them were brought in and questioned. There has not been one news report, not one investigative report about CPS, about the Suffolk County Police Department, about Suffolk County Family Court, about Nassau County Family Court, about Nassau County Police. There's 5 that I can think of right there. We have not heard from one, hold on a second, one report, not one. And here we are, January of 2020. The police commissioner said, we are going to look at every interaction that this child has had. And I'll put it back so you can hear it. The news reporter asked about CPS, and according to Justina Zupko-Valva, the judges, one of them recused himself. One judge retired, I believe. But all the rest of the CPS workers are still doing their same jobs. How effed up is that?
I can tell you that we are going to look at every interaction that this child had with the system, and we're we're going to follow through and make sure that we investigate every avenue.
Commissioner, have we been able to substantiate these abuse claims that this has transpired for some period of time?
Again, that's all part of this investigation, and we're going to continue to look into that.
And the school nurse and the school district, it seems as though everyone had been aware of this for some time. Is civil police in charge of CPS, or how does that?
No, we're not. But I can tell you that I have been in constant contact with the commissioner of the Department of Social Services. We're working closely together to make sure that we are investigating every avenue and every contact that this family had with.
Okay, so she's just there said that she's working with the commissioner of social services in Suffolk County. To this day, and I searched just this week. Let me put myself back full screen. I searched just this week, Monday. I did a search. I did a deep dive into all of the local publications and all of the stuff. I could not find not one overhaul or review or reprimand of anybody and everyone who came into contact with him. Now, the school made 33 different reports to child welfare. The boys came in soaked with urine down into their shoes, into their clothing. They came in with no food. They were eating out of the garbage can. They were eating off the floor. Something's got to give here, folks. Something's got to give. Let me check these super chats because the $20 super chat came in from Kim. Oh, I got that one. Mike from Profiling Evil is checking in. There's our good friend Mike from Profiling Evil. Where did his super chat go? Actually, it was a super sticker, I believe. There he is, Mike from Profiling Evil. That's Mike King. Everybody obviously knows that he's one of my brothers in blue, as he says. We are brothers from another mother. So thank you, Mike, for that super sticker. And everyone definitely should go over and check out Profiling Evil. It's one of my suggested channels here in the suggested feed. Jamie, thank you for the super chat. She says, when will CPS ever be held accountable? Let me bring back in Jess, the mystery maven. Jess, it's just mind-boggling that even the criminal defense attorney, Mr. Laturco, who was representing Michael Valva, I have a clip, and I'll play it in a few minutes, where he says to news reporters, why is the prosecutor not bringing in all of the CPS workers? Any thoughts on what angle a defense attorney would go with that, calling out the prosecution for not bringing in CPS?
This troubles me so much about this case. I mean, you were just talking about all of this, and if this was reported as it was, reported and I believe by the school all that many times, then Suffolk County CPS should have issued what's called a notice of existence, and that's like a letter to the Valva saying that they issued, they received a complaint and they're pursuing it. And I've never seen anything about that or read anything about that. I mean, I really feel like there has to be investigation here. Clearly, something's wrong. In terms of the defense calling that out to the prosecution, that is very troubling. Like, the whole idea that they didn't bring that up is troubling to me. But to me, they probably didn't want to bring that in because they don't want to bring up information like that that's going to damage their case. Like, they don't want to make it look like, oh, somebody dropped the ball here and didn't step in when they should have, and somehow that would factor into the juror's mind and say, oh, well, if it was reported, then maybe that exonerates somebody somehow. So I mean, I don't understand this, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm so troubled by that whole entire line of what's going on in this case. It's so troubling to me.
And the amazing part is that nobody is pushing and questioning, because the mom, I believe, took her two surviving boys, Anthony and Andrew, and went to her home country of Poland. Her mom lives there, and I believe that she's still out of the country. I could be wrong. If anybody's in the Facebook groups, correct me if I'm wrong. If Justina is here, then my bad. But as far as I know, she's not in the United States, because she was so afraid that they were going to try to take her kids back away from her that she fled this country. And I don't blame her. I don't blame her. She has a $200 million lawsuit against Suffolk County, not
Right.
the police, against the entire county of Suffolk. So, out here in Long Island, we have Nassau County and Suffolk County. It's broken down into two separate counties. And she's suing for $200 million for negligence. And you know what? She deserves every penny of that and then more.
Yeah.
And then
And you know what? And maybe that's what's going to make the change here. Maybe you got to hit these people in the pocketbook for anybody to really take notice of what's happening. I
Right.
cannot believe at this point that these people are still working these jobs and that there is no formal investigation that's been put out there. Even, they, in my mind, they would be smart to go out there and to tell the public, like, we're doing an investigation. This is what's happening here, because this can't happen again.
Right. Yeah. It's just utter insanity that in 2020 this happened, and here we are. Fast forward, we're almost into 2023. We got another, month and a half, and we're going to be into 2023. It's just maddening that no one is held accountable for the demise of this beautiful young little angel. And there he is, Tommy Valva. When I went to the funeral with Diane, and he was in that casket in a white little suit, it just broke my heart. That was one of the most troubling things in my retired life. I've been retired for now almost a little bit over a decade. And this case shattered me to the core. There's many others like Harmony Montgomery, our boys in California, Orrin and Orson West, Sincere and Classic. The list goes on and on with these babies. And, this thing, the cruel and unusual punishment and torture. I want to play this because this talks about the teachers flooding CPS with calls. I want everybody to hear this and take a real close listen to this, because this is telling.
Thomas and Anthony Valva's elementary school principal, Edward Schneier, testified that school employees felt like they weren't getting the results they wanted to see from CPS. So he and other members of staff decided as a team to, quote, flood the CPS hotline with calls. Michael Valva and Angela Paulina are standing trial separately, each charged with murder in the death of Michael Valva's 8-year-old son, Thomas. The principal testified that when Thomas and Anthony started in the East Murchis School District in 2017, he said they were happy, healthy, and clean. But then he described how things changed. His, quote, very serious concerns included when the boys started wearing pull-ups to school, which he described as a huge surprise because they were previously potty trained. He said Thomas came to school with bruises, was cold, and would always have his jacket on. He described Anthony's significant weight loss and how he directed teachers to monitor the food coming in the boys' lunchboxes. The principal described the frustration of school staffers who kept contacting CPS, which led to the group decision to flood CPS with calls. Defense attorney John Laturco questioned why the prosecution isn't calling CPS caseworkers as witnesses.
99% of the CPS reports came back unfounded. Why is CPS workers?
99% of those flooded CPS calls, just now your audio is still, they can still hear you. Is this not unbelievable? That 99%, this is the criminal defense attorney.
That's crazy.
This is exactly what I was telling you that I was going to play. This totally mind me. I was just blown away when I heard this.
CPS reports came back unfounded.
Witnesses.
99% of the CPS reports came back unfounded. Why is CPS workers not being called to explain their rationale of having those reports and all the school complaints to be determined to be unfounded?
That's as close as I feel that this guy is a good guy. I don't see any upside other than him pointing blame on somebody else other than his client, right, Jess?
Right.
Let's be real. That's the only reason I think he mentioned that. But he still highlighted and embarrassed the entire county of Suffolk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they didn't do anything here.
It's ridiculous.
I'm going to let this play. It's just another minute. Oh, my God.
The rationale of having those reports and all the school complaints to be determined to be unfounded.
Loturco said there's a big void in the narrative in the prosecution's case. Asked if the defense will call the CPS workers as witnesses,
Potentially, we might call them.
the principal became emotional on the stand when he testified about the day Thomas died. He said he's a volunteer firefighter and received a notice for a child in cardiac arrest on Bittersweet Lane. He said he knew the address, which was the Valva Polina home, from all the CPS reports. He made a call and found out Thomas was absent that day. Meantime, defense attorney John Loturco says
Everyone needs to be focused on not the neglect, the child endangerment, but rather on the depraved murder charge that is being brought. This is a overstated charge, and there's no evidence to show that Mr. Valva wanted his child to die.
Well, we know that that's bullshit because he's found guilty. Fast forward. Jess, this is what any good criminal defense attorney would do for their clients, right? But it burns us up. By a show of hands in the chat, who just gets sick when they hear a criminal defense attorney defending a monster like that? And it is part of the system. It's part of the job, right? You guys have a job to do.
Yes. Yeah, you want to zealously represent your client to the best of your ability, and you want to make sure that your client gets a fair trial, but there's always controversy over, how far do defense attorneys go in these cases, because, I've always had a problem. I don't take cases like this. I would never take a case like this. I could never. But,
right.
There's a whole issue of where does it cross the line though? Our courts say from, a jurisprudence standpoint, everyone's deserving of a fair, trial, and everything should be on the up and up, so to speak. And the defense attorney is there to make sure that happens. But, in my mind, so many times it crosses over a line, where it's the defenses that defense attorneys are allowed to bring out at times has gotten over time more and more ridiculous, for lack of a better word, and it's hard. I couldn't represent somebody like this. I can tell you that.
In cases like this, I don't know how they do it. And, people say, how does Barbara Butcher do her medical examiner work, right? How can an undertaker, how does funeral directors do their jobs day in and day out, embalming people and getting them ready for viewing for the families? I look at criminal defense attorneys and look at cases like this and say, how do you do it? But if we didn't have criminal defense attorneys, there's many people that are innocent, and obviously have been through the system, that watch us or that have watched replays, or, so many people, you don't know what your fate is. You don't know if you're going to get involved in something that could be potentially be charged with a crime, and your love for a criminal defense attorney, if you're in that position, will grow, because you'll be I need you. Help me.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think that there's often a very popular, it's really a misconception, because, if and you're a police officer, so I don't know how you feel about this one, but, when you're questioned by the police, people think if you reach out to an attorney before you speak to the police about whatever it is, that you're guilty, or that somehow it makes you a bad person, right?
You want an attorney, you're guilty.
Yeah, and so everyone makes that jump, and I get it. I understand all of that, but it really, it shouldn't be that jump. It doesn't make you a bad person to do that, because everyone in this country has rights. So it's really, on the one hand, a really smart idea that if you're going to be questioned in some way, that you know what those rights are, and you have, you don't say something to maybe incriminate yourself that maybe you have nothing to do with. An attorney's going to protect you for things like that.
Yeah, no, Jess, that's a great point. And listen, if you're just joining, we're joined here by Jess, the Mystery Maven. She's a criminal defense attorney. She's been in the field for quite a long time. She's been kind enough to join us on a Friday evening by telephone to talk about the verdict. Guilty of all charges, Michael Valva, the father of Thomas Valva, found guilty of murder, second degree, and endangering the welfare of a child ×4 for Anthony, who survived this brutal and cruel and unusual punishment, and Thomas, who died on January 17th, 2020 at the hands of his father and step monster. Here's just another little clip. This is the school. This is the school psychologist. I thought this was really riveting to hear this testimony. Let's listen in.
School psychologist Renee Emin testified that in a May 2019 meeting with Thomas Valva and a CPS investigator, Thomas said he and his brother Anthony sleep in the garage because they have accidents, that they go to the bathroom over the hill, and he said he had to hose himself off outside. Clearly frustrated with CPS, Emin testified, quote, he said it to the person who should be able to do something about it. Emin said the CPS worker told her it's not possible to fit a mattress in the garage.
I just want to back that up because some people might not know this. This is the crime scene. This is the crime scene in 2022. And that is where Thomas and Anthony were left in 19 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures with no heat, no blankets, no bedding. They were on a hard concrete floor. And then after the heat, they were found, and he was in bad shape, suffering from hypothermia. His father took him out here where you see my cursor and brought him into this backyard and sprayed him down with cold water because he soiled himself. And then when he realized that he was dying or dead, he dragged him down the stairs in the basement of this home and put him in a warm tub to try to unfreeze him. And I know that sounds harsh, but that's what he did. And he took his clothes that he soiled and put it in a garbage bag and put it in the garbage behind this gate, because we'll hear from the homicide detective who took that statement from Michael Valva. All right, I'll let the rest of this play.
In the garage, the boys continued to live with their dad, Michael Valva, and Angela Polina. The school psychologist testified that when Anthony and Thomas Valva came back to school after the winter break in January of 2020, Anthony walked with his knees bent. She said his back was completely rounded and it looks like he needed a cane or a walker to support him. And she said Thomas Valva had a limp. Thomas Valva died of hypothermia on January 17th of 2020. Michael Valva and Angela Polina are both charged with murder in his death. Earlier Wednesday, Edward Concilio, who was staying at the Valva Polina home, testified that he knew Thomas and Anthony Valva were sleeping in the...
This is the man who is alleged to have sexual relations with Angela Polina. Just an FYI.
garage. Concilio, whose wife is Polina's cousin, testified that on one occasion he heard knocking from the door to the garage and a boy's voice saying he needed to go to the bathroom. He said he texted Polina, who said it was Valva's responsibility. Defense attorney Anthony LaPinta asked Concilio why he didn't help the boys, and he said, because I knew what the repercussions would be. Asked, you would suffer the wrath of Angela? He responded, yes. Asked if Polina was the disciplinarian of the children, he said yes.
We think that the testimony of Mr. Concilio helped the defense significantly today.
Meantime, the psychologist testified that Thomas and Anthony's hands were always red. She said it's an image that haunts all of us. She testified that Thomas said his father threw a backpack with a flower pot at him. Defense attorney Anthony LaPinta acknowledges Valva, to a great extent, failed his kids.
He did not discipline those kids correctly. He did not care for those kids the way he should have. But is he guilty of murder? Yes. Clearly not.
Cecilia Dowd for Newsday TV.
Well, we know that he is guilty of murder, and he is found guilty on all charges. Now, Jess, you're getting to hear this probably for the first time, right? Hands blood red coming into school, the school psychologist making notes of this, the school nurse weighed both these boys, and they lost 12 plus pounds. You're supposed to, as you grow, gain weight, gain height. They shrunk. They came in hunchbacked, as she said. Anthony, who survived this thing, and Thomas walking with a limp. How do you defend oh man. I'm not even going to use the F word. I stopped myself. How do you defend a monster like that? It takes, it's just, for me, I don't know. Like I said, I couldn't do it. I couldn't even sit next to somebody like that. and we look at the Parkland shooter, that trial just wrapped up. There was no trial. That proceeding just wrapped up, and we heard those victim impact statements, and we saw the drama created by the defense side, the public defender's office. Quite a bit of drama there. I think that they are some of the most hated criminal defense attorneys in the world right now. But that will blow off, and then we'll be on to something new like this. It's just mind blowing how many people failed this boy, from the police to the fire department and the EMS that was called to the home several times, that was called to the school, the CPS workers, family court judges, the victims' advocates. These kids were right in family court. They're assigned a victim advocate or something like that, right? Don't the kids get assigned? Can you school me on that?
Yeah, absolutely. The minor children would absolutely be given, like a guardian ad litem would be appointed. And on top of that, in the family courts, there's so many resources available. So that's another thing that troubles me about this case, is the lack of any sort of there's just so many resources. I did work back in law school back in the day in Suffolk County in the family court, and there were just so many different volunteer agencies there. The law school that I went to had students who were there to help. It boggles my mind that there were so many failures in this case here. Definitely, I really think that this needs to be used for every agency that touched this case in any way to look at their actions and to say what went wrong here, because we can never let this happen again. It boggles my mind.
It is mind-boggling, because our children and our elderly and our handicapped, they need us. They need people to look out for them. And these children, 8 years old and 10, right at the time. Tommy was 8, Anthony was 10, and Andrew, the youngest, who you saw in the mother's arms there at the funeral, he was just a 6-year-old. They can't fend for themselves. Thank you, Janine, for the super chat. I appreciate it. And guys and girls, again, if you're not yet subscribed to Crime Time with DutyRon, please hit that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. Share this video out so everybody will see it. We need to keep talking about this. And Suffolk County is not off the hook here, because there needs to be whatever has to happen. Protests, marches. I'll be there for those, because this, to me, is a travesty of justice on so many levels. Now, I want everyone to listen quickly, and then we'll wrap it up, Jess. This is the lead investigator. This is the lead detective. He's now a sergeant in internal affairs in Suffolk County. We watched him do the perp walk with Michael and Angela Polina. His name is, Sergeant Norberto Flores. At the time, he was Detective Flores, and he is the arresting officer and lead detective at the time in homicide. He's now in internal affairs, and he needs to do something about this, because somebody really dropped the ball here. So let's play this little clip, and then we'll wrap it up.
Norberto Flores, who was the lead detective investigating Thomas Valva's death, testified about watching videos obtained from cameras at the home of Michael Valva and Angela Polina. He saw, quote, both Anthony and Thomas in the garage on the concrete floor shivering. He testified he believed the date was January 16th of 2020. Thomas Valva died on the 17th. He said he saw a series of videos depicting similar images. Flores said after watching the videos, he notified CPS, and he said he called Michael Valva to let him know that he was notifying CPS. Michael Valva and his ex-fiancée Angela Polina are charged in Thomas's death and are standing trial separately. Valva's attorney, Anthony LaPinta.
The focus here, and it's always been the focus, is whether Michael Valva's conduct rises to the level of depraved indifference to human life. That's what this case is about.
Flores, now a sergeant, testified that he spoke to Valva at the hospital the day of Thomas's death. He said Valva told him Thomas had fallen, that possibly his shoelace was untied, causing the fall. Valva allegedly said that Thomas was a bit wobbly and complaining of being cold, so he said he gave his son a warm bath. Flores claims Valva said he went to get Angela Polina, came back 5 minutes later, and Thomas was unconscious and slumped to the side of the tub. Flores said Valva told him he took him out and wrapped Thomas in blankets. Thomas stopped breathing and Michael Valva called 911. Asked about the home's camera system, Flores said Valva told him he didn't manage the cameras and that he'd have to ask Polina. Cecilia Dowd for Newsday TV.
So that's, I mean, that's shocking information and details right there, Jess. I mean, this detective testified that he saw the boys in the garage the days before. And we now know it was over a week. I think it went from January 2nd all the way up until, I think, the 12th. They had videos every day and night. They were doing their homework for school inside the garage, on the floor, no mattress, no pillows, and no blankets.
Unreal, unbelievable. That's got to be investigated too. I mean, all of this, every single person who did nothing, didn't report this and didn't do anything, and it all needs to come to light. Like, what happened here?
Yeah, there's so many failures. The neighbors called the police to do a welfare check, right? The police came, nobody answered the door, and they never came back and checked. So it's just unbelievable. It makes people want to say, hey, why wasn't it the top charge? But we talked about it in the beginning of this live stream when you first came on with me. It makes sense to get that 25 years to life to ensure that this guy never sees the light of day. And now there's a second piece to this. Now there's Angela's trial, which will commence in a short period of time. We will be covering that extensively. We're covering that extensively. I just want to see if I have, yeah, here it is. Records say that at least 33 calls were made to the police from Valva's home. I just want to see what this, I'm going to play this. 33 calls to the cops. Let's just put this on. And I know, Jess, you got to go. So I appreciate you hanging out here with us.
Got it.
So let's see this. This is going to make everybody even more angry.
Some of the challenges faced by police entering a custody dispute, there could be many there. They're coming into a environment where there could have been, it's very emotional, both sides maybe want custody, both sides are arguing, and the police have one job, that is to ensure public safety, ensure everyone's safe, ensure no one's in imminent danger. The police don't have the authority to remove a child from the home, right? They have authority to protect children, they have authority to arrest an offender, but they don't always have the authority to immediately remove a child from a home. There's many factors that go into place there. So sometimes when someone calls the police, maybe the best they could do is the police can give them a report that an incident happened, and that person can now go to family court and petition a judge and let them know what's going on. So that when the police respond to a custody battle, it sometimes meets the level of a civil issue, a civil court case rather than a criminal court case. So if there's not that level of criminality there, the police cannot make an arrest. Michael Valva is a police officer, and we don't know whether he used his leverage to assert power and dominance over his victims, over his family. That does not mean that the police did not respond thoroughly and the police did not investigate fully, but sometimes an abuser will use their position, use their leverage as whatever title they have.
You know what? This blows my mind because this was during the course of them not being prosecuted, right? They were locked up and they did this interview. This was in 2020. What I'm hearing here, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jess, I'm hearing these overtones of protecting the police and saying that they did their job and that they did everything. I'm here to tell you that fast forward into almost 2023, there has not been a full review. Nobody has been reprimanded. Nobody has been arrested. Nobody has been removed from their jobs. Not just the police. I'm talking about, CPS, all the caseworkers, all the people who are responsible, the people at the school. They made a lot of noise, but nobody did shit. That's the mind-blowing part of this, and Jess, I mean, listen, as a parent, as a former police officer, this stuff just gets me crazy, because you have people like this, and I'm not dogging this guy, but he was sugarcoating the whole thing. And I have this thing labeled as 33 calls made to the police, and that's not what this was. I guess they changed it. But when I saved this, you see up here, it says records, at least 33 calls made to police from Valva family homes. So this is a combination of calls, and I'll read this out loud. Police on Long Island responded to more than 30 calls over 4 years from the estranged parents of Thomas Valva, 8 years old, Santa Maricha's boy, who died after he was forced to sleep in sub-freezing garage. Record showed 33 calls to 911 between 2015 and 2019 to the Suffolk and Nassau County Police Departments, ranging from child abuse allegations, and I'm sure Justina Zupko Valva was behind a lot of these calls, ranged from child abuse allegations to disputes over visitation issues. The calls occurred during the time period in which Suffolk prosecutors now say the boys were being beaten, starved, and kept in a frigid temperatures as punishment, according to the records obtained by Newsday. The father, Thomas, suspended NYPD. See, he was suspended at this time. He wasn't even fired from his job, because they give him a certain amount of time before they terminate them. So this was early on, and it goes on. Continued reading here, and it says Suffolk police responded to the home of Thomas Valva in Valley Stream, well, that's Nassau County, and then Santa Maricha's, which is Suffolk, where Valva and Polina lived separately from his wife, Justina Zupko Valva. She was met with hostile treatment by responding officers. Now, this is so typical. They made her out to be an emotionally disturbed person. They made her out to be crazy. And don't kill the messenger here, because I'm just saying it as it is. The police and everyone that she came into contact with, because she was so aggressive in trying to save her babies, she told the police and the courts, my kids are gonna die. And one of them did. And hence, this is why she's in Poland right now. She left the country because she's scared shitless,
Yeah. I mean, I understand where she's coming from. That's horrible. It's a dereliction of duty, I think.
It's a lot of everything. And the crazy and angry part, the thing that makes me so angry, is that nobody has done anything. You heard that police commissioner say, we're going to do a top to bottom review. They didn't do anything. They haven't done anything.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I'm going to play this last presser, and I promise this is going to be the end of it. But you're going to hear this. This is going to make you cry. But this is Justina Zupko Valva. This is the mom outside in the vestibule, outside the court. And she tells them, you all failed me, as she's crying. It's actually making me get broken up just talking about it right now. This is 8 minutes. I'm not going to play the whole 8, but I'm going full screen with this, and get your tissues ready.
Yep.
I just want to say it was so extremely difficult to sit in the courtroom, listen to obviously all the facts related to my son Thomas's death. I just kept thinking about how much abuse all my children encounter from the hands of those two abusers, Michael and Angela, for years, day after day after day, being deprived from food, shelter, the basics, what every child should be provided with. I kept thinking about all the institutions who failed to help him, who completely did absolutely nothing. Now everybody's trying to do the right thing, but where were you when I begged you for help? when you could have saved my child's life. I did file complaint with Suffolk County District Attorney's Office. I did file complaint with Nassau County District Attorney's Office, FBI, Suffolk County Police, Nassau County Police, Attorney General. Nobody helped my children. There should be first-degree murder. I don't understand that there's a second-degree murder. They kept telling me that that's the highest they can go. No, you can go higher. You have to set up the standards. That case like that, all the children out there who are in similar situation, who are similarly abused, are gonna know that crime like that is punishable to the highest extent of the law, not to the second extent of the law. Thomas deserves much more than that. The justice needs to be served. Why all the people involved who knew about this enormous abuse, why they not in jail by now? Why they not being criminally charged? Dana McCabe, attorney for the children, Ethan.
She goes on to mention all of the people who are responsible for this. I got to put this back. I'm sorry, guys. She mentions all of the people that she could remember from her memory who she came into contact with.
To be served, why all the people involved who knew about this enormous abuse, why they not in jail by now? Why they not being criminally charged? Dana McCabe, attorney for the children, Ethan Hartner, attorney for the children, knew about the abuse. Ethan Hartner is still on the case. Dana McCabe is still on the case. They still keep their jobs. What about the CPS case workers? Michelle Clark, Jennifer Lance, Melissa Estrada, Jean Manteau, everybody involved from Suffolk County.
She doesn't have a script in front of her. She knows this from memory because this is tattooed in her mind. She's not reading off a script. These people, she remembers all of those names with that undue stress that she's under right now. And she blasted out all those names. God bless this woman. I was honored to meet her. And I'm telling you, she is the strongest woman I've ever met in my life.
Ethan Hartner is still on the case. Dana McCabe is still on the case. They still keep their jobs. What about the CPS case workers? Michelle Clark, Jennifer Lance, Melissa Estrada, Jean Manteau, everybody involved from Suffolk County, Child Protective Services, all the caseworkers who were involved, they still keep their jobs. They're not criminally charged. I don't understand that. And we're all paying money from our taxes. And they conduct all those criminal actions against the children. They all involved in murdering my child. All the judges, Judge Zimmerman, Lawrence, Bernard Cheng, they all should be in jail because you are a judge or you have a high power position. It doesn't mean you are above the law. My son stands. What happened to my son is a clear evidence of enormous corruption that's happening in the system. We're talking about a web of corruption between police, DA's office, CPS, attorneys for the children, all those institutions. People involved have Thomas's blood on their hands. And my children were sexually abused. They're produced for childhood pornography. Why nobody is talking about it? There is so much evidence in this case. The father receiving thousands and thousands of dollars a month, 30 to 130,000 a month in deposits from unknown sources. Children's testimony. I already expressed the allegation of sexual abuse in 2016. I filed police reports. The specimen wasn't even tested, wasn't even sent to the lab because I was told by Detective Salazar that it was too expensive to test it.
She's talking about a rape kit. She was talking about a specimen, which was a rape kit that was done on one or both of her boys. And this is what she was told, that it was too expensive. This woman is talking from her mind and from her memory. I believe her.
even tested, wasn't even sent to the lab because I was told by Detective Salazar that it was too expensive to test it. There are people involved in my child's death that are walking free, and they should be in jail, and they should not harm any other child. I stand here for Tammy because he deserves justice. And I hope that is gonna bring change. I hope there's gonna be either institution external to oversee all the actions that all those institutions are conducting, especially if it comes to the children. And I pray to God that changes are gonna happen soon, because the children, you see, this case is public, but there are kids out there that are dying every day and nobody knows about it. So pray to God that this is gonna bring changes very soon, because this corruption cannot continue any longer. We need to stay strong and oppose what happened to me, to my children, because as you know, the effects of this abuse are gonna stay with them for the rest of their lives, and nobody's gonna bring the time that I lost with my children.
Yes, they did.
Nobody is gonna bring the time that they lost just to.
If you look at the podium, there's every major news outlet: NBC, ABC, CBS, News 12. Every network was there. They covered this. But after this, there was nothing.
Feel safe and happy. So thank you for all the support and love that everybody keeps expressing towards me and my family.
Listen to this.
Yesterday I was attending legislative meeting. Please, I know there were media out there, and I want you guys to listen what those people were trying to tell the public. Unfortunately, CPS, after my appearance, left completely disregarding the message that was put out there by victims of this corruptive system. In order to make changes, people have to be able to listen and look at every possible message that's out there. I was touched by some stories of the parents who were in similar situation that I was. I know Tammy was a fighter who always stand for the truth, and that's why he died for the truth. He's a hero. He was opposing the abuse. But how much could he handle? He was only 8 years old. I guarantee you, even an adult would not be able to handle that much abuse those children went through, as my children did. Just think about, as it was your own child, and do the right thing, and let the changes happen. Let's have people in all those offices and institutions who truly care about the children, who are stand for the truth, who oppose the corruption, who fight for children's lives. Thank you again. And please pray for my family. Thank you.
So there you have it. Very powerful. I mean, I remember watching that for the very first time. And as you could see, I'm going to put it back for a second. You guys can see all of the major news channels: Fox 5, WINS, News 12, CBS 2, NBC, 1010 Wins, ABC 7. They were all there to cover it. So all the major news outlets were on this case. And now it's Newsday and a couple of others that were Newsday. Kudos to Newsday. They covered this thing every single day of the trial. Now we have the second piece that has to come up. That's Angela. She needs to be found guilty of murder in the second degree and all the charges. Just how does this affect Angela's trial? I know you touched on it earlier, but for the people who are coming in here just now, how does a first trial with the husband or the fiance, the guilty verdicts, how does that affect the prosecution and the defense going forward in a trial? Is it a advantage to the defense, or is it a disadvantage?
Well, for the prosecution, it's definitely an advantage because now they can see, if there were weaknesses in the case, what were those weaknesses and what could the defense in the second trial come up with. So they can know how to perhaps be a little bit more effective in that to make sure that they get a conviction. In terms of the defense, this is going to coming from. So they'll have the insight of that, to be able to look back and say, okay, this is how they're going to present witnesses. This is how they're going to attack certain aspects and to prove the elements beyond a reasonable doubt. But the fact that they have a conviction in a very similar case, that is going to make the defense attorney probably reevaluate whether or not they want to change their plea or make a plea bargain. Definitely, I would think that is going to be on the radar for the defense attorneys.
Yeah, I agree. And
you know what, DutyRon, I also wanted to tell you, the fact that she has this wrongful death lawsuit, I don't know exactly if it's just Suffolk County or she named other entities, but the good thing about that is that during discovery, all of those reports that she made and all of the reports that everyone made, all of that information should come out in discovery. So at least that will bring some of this to light, and hopefully the public will have access to that and understand more about what the failures were. So I mean, at least there is some information that will get out that way through that lawsuit.
Yes, and thank you for bringing that up, Jess, because that's an important aspect to this and an important part of this. That lawsuit came quite a few. It came quite a great period of time going forward. It was not out at this point when she was making that statement outside the courtroom. She waited for some type of action to happen. And when she saw zero action happening, she was like, "Oh, hell no." And for those of you who don't know the inner workings and the inner moving parts to this case, Justina Zupko Valva, the mom we just saw, gave that heart-wrenching plea and very powerful, strong speech. She became a New York City corrections officer. She worked in the toughest jails in the country. The New York City correction system is the largest correction system municipal in the United States. And she worked as a New York City corrections officer, because when we went to the funeral, Diane and I, my neighbor, we saw the correction officers there. Her fellow men and women that she worked with were supporting her. They were there. So she became a corrections officer. She took the test. She said, I'm going to show my ex-husband that I could do his job too, or similar to it. And KK, thank you for the $10 super chat. The kids were taken away from her because when she fought in family court, she was representing herself. She didn't hire an attorney. And she went at this, and I think I told you this, Jess. She went at this charge solo, but she didn't go at it without receipts and records. She has boxes and boxes of evidence and zip drives that she brought to court. And at one point when she was in family court, that Judge Zimmerman that she mentioned by name, he told her to shut up.
Oh my gosh, that's horrible.
She said, Your Honor, I have a zip drive of evidence. All the videos of Michael doing the exchange and holding the kids' hands and telling the kids that they can't call her mommy, that Angela is the mommy, that if you call her mommy, you're going to get punished. She had all of this evidence, and they didn't allow her to present not one piece of it. And when she was ordered to do some type of family counseling or some type of something, I don't know exactly what it was, and she didn't do it, that was one of the deciding factors of why she lost custody of them, because she failed to comply with courts, what the courts were asking her to do. And they made that fatal error of taking all three of her kids away from her. And she told them, if you give my kids to him and her, they're going to be dead, all of them. And she put that on record. That's on record.
Wow. That's heartbreaking to hear that.
Yeah. And it came full circle. Listen, people in the chat are saying corruption. People in the chat are, listen, nothing has been said. Nothing has been brought to light by the county executive. We had the Suffolk County, that's like the equivalent of the New York City mayor. The Suffolk County executive, he runs the whole county. He came to the funeral. I saw him at the funeral, and he told the mother, we're going to do a top to bottom review of everything. But, now that lawsuit's there, of course, that stops every communication. But she was even thrown off the property of the Suffolk County Medical Examiner's office. Why, you may ask, why was she thrown off the property? She was up there asking for a copy of the autopsy of her son. And they called the police on her. And it's on Facebook. You could see it on a Facebook Live. I watched it myself. Suffolk County Police came, and they were nice about it, but they said, ma'am, you're going to have to leave, or we're going to issue a trespassing summons. Are you kidding me? It's public property.
It's crazy.
They made her leave. They said, you need an appointment to come here. Granted, it was during COVID, and they used that COVID monster as a reason that she couldn't go in there with, just come storming in and asking and requesting. But they didn't even allow her to put an official request. She was there. They could have taken the paperwork and let her fill out what she needed to fill out. She still, to this day, doesn't have the autopsy results of what happened to her son. Obviously, due to prosecution reasons, they wouldn't release that. But they didn't even tell her anything official. That's how
It's just unacceptable.
horrible. Yeah, that's how horrible this woman was treated. And you wonder why she left the country, right? She does not trust any bit of authority. When I met her and handed her my business card from the police department, I was in fear that she would have thought that like I was some kind of monster. And I actually, I didn't hesitate, but I felt like in my heart, like maybe I shouldn't be here, because one of the guys from the New York City Police Department, Michael Valva, a former cop, killed this boy. But I said, you know what? I'm not that. I'm not a monster. He's a monster. And we have monsters in all walks of life and in all professions. So that's the thing. I'm sorry that I went so long with this, guys. I want to just go to the chat and say hello to everybody. Blondie 1025, my good friend. Thank you so much. KK, she lived just in the next town over from me, but she's out of the country now. I went by her house, a week ago, and it looks like that house, that apartment that she lived in, it's like like a condo complex. It doesn't look like anybody else lives there anymore. Like, it doesn't look vacant because there's still all this religious stuff on the doors. So if I do see her again, I will send love from the community and from everybody here. We made several donations to her during the course of this. Diane B was in the car with me, and I asked her to videotape me walking up to the house, not to put it on YouTube. Obviously, I never did that. But for my own protection, like I didn't know how this exchange would go, but I had like $500 in an envelope, and I was handing it to her, and I just wanted her to video me because I just didn't know what was going to happen. But she hugged me. She opened up the door. I explained to her what I do, and I explained to her that I'd like to help her and highlight her case, and she hugged me at the door. And I handed her my card, my business card, and in an envelope gave her money and some gift cards for the kids. And she was so warm and welcoming. And then we went on to do that march on March 1st, the Justice for Thomas, and I videotaped that, and I did a live stream. So that's available if you guys want to see that Justice Walk for Thomas. It was a great outpouring of support, and the mayor of her town in Valley Stream where she lived so came out to support her, and they were all really good people. So yeah, Diane is in the chat. She's like, yeah, I was in the car with Ron on that day. Yeah. So, you know, that's what we did for this family. And I think 2 other times I stopped there and gave her more donations that came in. So thank you to everybody who supports Crime Time with DutyRon. Yeah, they donated that bench, and there's a memorial at the park. I'll go over to that park soon, and I'll do a walk around, and I'll show you the memorial tree that was planted. And we were there for that beautiful ceremony for Justice for little Tommy. Thank you, Lee Perry. Oh, Lee Perry's on Facebook. Lee Perry, always great to see you. Thank you so much. Thank you to the Facebook folks and the Twitter users and everybody who's watching this. If you can, share this out onto your social media platforms. Let's get the word out there. Jess, you are such a great friend. Thank you for being here, talking to the audience and giving the lawyer side, the criminal defense attorney side. We appreciate you taking out the time on a Friday night. So thank you, Jess, so much.
It's my pleasure. And I do want to tell you that while I do criminal defense work, I've done criminal defense, and I'm kind of like phasing out of that, and I'm doing mostly appeals. But I do want to tell you, I have about 10 or 11 years experience more on the prosecutorial side. So I wanted to tell you that because I know that we've probably talked about it, but
yeah, we have. But I want to keep it pertaining to this. We're talking about the criminal defense side.
I hear you.
So, yes, but Jess, the Mystery Maven, she's got her own YouTube channel. I will link that down below in the description. Everyone go and subscribe to Jess, the Mystery Maven. She's awesome, and she really took out her time on a Friday night. You know, she could have been out on a hot date or something like that, and she kind of came to hang out with us to talk about this case. So thank you so much, Jess.
You're so welcome. I mean, this is where I go when I need inspiration. I mean, I have so much respect for you and for everyone in this chat for what you do to support the victims of crimes. I mean, and I was just telling somebody, I was on a panel the other day, and I said, DutyRon is a good person. You know, he's not just this character who's up on a screen, blabbing about, a bunch of nonsense. You are the real deal. You are authentic. And, we love you for that. And I appreciate everything that you do. It means so much to so many people. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you, Jess. That's very kind. There's so many different options for people to see on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. You can go and watch a whole bunch of stuff. What Ed and I do here with our great guests like yourself is we like to give the education side to the investigations with from the police perspective, from the detective's perspective, but we love to bring our experts on like yourself, our forensic anthropologists, and all the great stuff that we do here. And we take each case individually. We respect the victims, their families. We respect the process. We don't cross lines. We will not go and interview a potential subject or witness. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to give you guys a good overview of the real deal of what goes on, because we have, over the course of our time between Ed Wallace and I, 48 years of experience in the police department, or 44 years. So Ed has that CSI, side, which is fascinating. He's such a smart, intelligent, and also he gives it to you in layman's terms, which is fantastic. When Ed talks to you, you don't feel like you're talking to a professor. We had that in one of our last several live streams where we had a doctor come on, and it was just mind blowing. The conversation was just like, it was difficult at best. But, when we have Barbara come on and Dr. Murray Marks and all of those professionals, they give it to us in layman's terms, and that's what we're looking for. So Thank you, everybody, for watching. I want to just say a couple of things. Thank you to the moderators, the super chatters. Rocky, thank you for that super sticker. Thank you to everybody in the live chat. If you please can remember, hit the thumbs up, like and subscribe to this community. Subscribe to all my guests, the Mystery Maven Jess. I'll link it down below, and also Shannon, True Crime with Shannon. Awesome people. And let's everybody, again, take a moment to send prayers, strength, and positive vibes to Justina Zupko Valva and the prosecutorial team. They did a fantastic job on this case. They got us justice, right? They got justice for Tommy, for his family, for his mom. They're probably, very happy right now. But again, she's not going to be happy until all of these jagaloons are brought in and held responsible, held accountable for their lack of action taken to help save this child. So again, God bless the world. God bless the United States of America, and God bless each and every one of us here in the chat, but especially the victims and their families. We send them, again, that strength and prayers and positive vibes. Good night from New York. And Jess, I'm not sure where you are, but thank you for joining us. I think somewhere down south, West Virginia, Georgia, one of those states. There you go.
North Carolina.
Carolina. Not South Kakalaki? No?
No.
All right. Thank you, Jess. Good night
All right, you
from
got it.
New York and South Kakalaki. I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.